Right then, a little insight into my sort of approach on method feeder fishing. We've come to a commercial today to sort of show the best example of it, catch some fish. Packington Somers is where I sort of learnt to fish the way I fish the method. Things have developed over the years, but these bad boys, fantastic. Like it's our latest release on methods at Korum, and they range between, these are the 20 gram. I've organised them in my box, as you can see. I've got my 20, 30, 45 and 60 gram. Now, I've been fishing a specimen carp water, do you know what I mean? Sort of where you go and sit behind your alarms for 24 hours. And I've been using these instead of solid bags. Hassle free, because I haven't got to keep fiddling with bags, and if it's damp like it is today, you're not constantly melting PVA, and exactly the same presentation, just half the fuss basically. And the beauty of these, we've got the quick change system, so with the stem that pops out, that'll be always on your main line. If you want to start fishing short on a softer patch and you want to use your 20 gram, you just unclip your method and pop the 20 gram on. Or you want to start chucking long again. I mean, I've been chucking these well in excess of 100 yards, and they fly really true. So this is my general setup on the method. I see people using it with tail rubbers, and I personally prefer the turbo bead. The main reason being, if I show you, when I clip the rig on, so you've got your quick change aspect, and you can pull that in there, but it's much shorter. So when it allows the hook bait to fall back properly into the feeder without the tail rubber sort of pushes the rig away from the feeder, and I want that to stay in sort of the main ball of bait for as long as I can. And then yeah, it's just, as you've seen, I've shown how you can quick change them on the stem. I've got 8-pound feeder line. I'm using the 12-foot Trilogy rod today, because with the quiver tip, which is fantastic for punching methods out. They're not shy when they pull it round. It's effectively a bolt rig, isn't it? They're picking it up heavy end first, and yeah, it's sort of fishing sensibly. So I've got a size, seems quite big for a 6mm, but a size 12 all rounder. Your hook is buried in the bait. All they need is that nice little offering there on top. But yeah, and then I've got my axis for 4,000 size reel. That's ample for chucking on most commercials. You just match your reel to whatever you're fishing to, really. If you're fishing some bigger lakes, and then you up the size of your reel basically, make it easier for you to chuck there. I keep looking over your shoulder because I've been feeding the line down the inside, and at the minute there's loads of tail patterns down there. So hopefully we'll have one or two on the float in a little bit. But first, let's try and get a proper one on the method. Right, a little insight into my bait approach for method feeder fishing. First up, ground bait. Get yourself something that's got a good binding property to it. Your natural ground baits, they're going to be looser and they're going to break up on impact. You want something that's going to hold firm and get your rig down to the bottom. Salted caramel, I've been fishing that 50-50 with the F1 Dark, and it's been fantastic. And I'll knock that up at home. I'll probably do it the night before. And what I do, if I'm adding any additives or liquids, I'll add it to the water before I mix the ground bait, so everything's dispersed evenly throughout the water. Same with the pellets. I've got the fishery pellets, and I've got my water, ran through all my additives in the water, covered the pellets for sort of 30 minutes, let them start absorbing. I don't want them soaking wet, I want them just to start absorbing the water so they go sticky on the outside. I've got 3 bait tubs, because what I'll do is I've got my ground bait there and my pellets, and then I'll have an empty tub, because what I can do, if I feel like the fish are just eating the pellets, I can just fish the neat pellets. All the same with the ground bait. But what I can do is I can add an handful of pellets, a handful of ground bait. What the ground bait will help is, pellets are brilliant in shallow water. They break down much quicker, they explode off the feeder. The ground bait will help bind the bait and get it down. So if you're fishing a deep lake, say 10, 12 foot of water, I would always have some sort of element of ground bait with my pellets. So it squeeze it on tight and it will make sure it gets down there. But having a spare bait tub, you can play around with your mixes, so I can add a handful of ground bait, add a handful of pellets. Say if I want something really attractive, all of a sudden the fish have come really high in the water and you want to get them down. So put loads of additives in it, something that's going to work through the column, and it just gives you a little bit of bait to experiment with. And then if that works, then by all means knock up a bigger batch and then start fishing through the day. But while you're finding out what they want, you've got options, and it's just a little tip or a little thing I like to do. And then you've got your fluoro rocks. So I don't really use these in my pellets, but if I'm ground bait fishing, a handful of these just adds that spark of colour. Most of the time I'll have one of the 6mm Bandon wafters on the hair. They just catch fish everywhere, don't they? Nice and small, so no bigger than it's 6mm pellet. If you want something that's going to stand out over the ground bait, I'll probably go to a 10mm if I can get the top off, because everything's soaking. It's properly stuck on. There we go. So those, I've just jazzed them up a little bit with the haze. Really pungent, and that'll sit out nicely. So you've got your ground bait there, and it's just the cherry on the top. Nice big visual bait over the ground bait. And then if it's more match the hatch, you can't beat a pellet-o. Just matches over the pellet. That's what the fish are feeding on. It's not as obvious, so if the fish are being a little bit cagey, come down, have a feed on the pellet. It's red, it still stands out quite well against the other pellets, but it's just, the fish aren't going to be as worried about it. But yeah, that's my sort of general bait approach on the method feeder. that's a better one to finish on. Little insight into my sort of method feeder tactics, and a few little hints and tips regarding ground bait and pellet, fishing the pellet in the shallower water and using ground bait as a binder, get it down. We had a run of small fish. I'm really glad to finish on a bigger one. So yeah, hopefully you've took something from the video, and like and subscribe. Wicked.